Yeah, we are live, I believe, and let me go live on Instagram. Let's see. Hi, Instagram. We are live over there, and we are also live on YouTube. And we are officially here with my beautiful guest, Dr. Rubye Braye. But a little bit before we officially start the conversation, let me tell you, you are here. Hello guys, thank you so much for joining us on Instagram. We're gonna be you are here for Dream Big with Zhanna, inspiring you to reignite, refire, and refuel your life. And today my special guest is a dear friend and an incredible human being, amazing soul, Dr. Rubye Braye. Before you get to hear her beautiful voice and all the wisdom she's going to share around conflict resolution, that's the theme for today. Now, we're going to be discussing conflict resolution, 5 simple shifts that anyone can make to resolve any conflict. That's what Rubye is an expert in. But before anything else, Rubye, let me give people the official introduction. And it's just a little snippet from her really extended bio, official bio. So here is how it goes. Dr. Rubye Braye is a solution-oriented professional, certified executive coach with more than 25 years of experience supporting executives in creating organizations where employees, clients thrive. She works with clients in different types of organizations, always seeking to understand the essence of their personal, team, board, and performance needs. Then she supports them in creating actions to address their needs. Her specialty is the resolution of conflicts for improved communication and relationships. Boy, do we need that. Her commitment to genuinely listen and deeply engage with clients has resulted in them creating effective solutions and outcomes. Dr. Rubye Braye has been described by clients and colleagues as one who is rich and full of robust information and learning, with integrity, loyalty, and commitment to her discipline, those she serves, and the difference she makes in our beautiful world. When not working, Rubye makes time to enjoy family and friends. She also takes pleasure in reading, dining, traveling, touring art and battleship museums. And I have so many questions for Rubye. Dr. Rubye Braye, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Zhanna. It's a joy to be here with you today.
Thank
you for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you for making the time. And guys who are joining us on Instagram, I just want to say thank you for joining us. You cannot see Rubye Braye, Dr. Rubye Braye. You can see her on YouTube. If you just go to Zhanna Shpits, you will see us live over there. And or you can watch it in replay. But thank you for making the time. Let's dive right in. Rubye, what is your big dream?
Wow. My big dream is a world where everybody feels seen, heard, acknowledged, and appreciated, and where we are great stewards of this fabulous rock, the place that we all call home, where we take care of the air, we take care of the water, we take care of the animals, we take care of the plants, and we do a great job of interacting with others in relationships where we treat others with respect.
Yes, thank you so much. This is exactly what, I just want to tell you, yesterday, I was filming for yet another episode of the Kids Universe TV show, which is exactly the mission of the show, exactly the same, to promote peace, love, compassion, empathy, and respect all around. And communication is one of it's probably the number one reason for any conflict. right? That you are an expert, like you are an expert in conflict resolution. We're going to be talking about that. Before we get into the subject of conflict resolution, Rubye, could you please tell us like where the story started? Why did you get interested in that subject in the first place?
Mm. Uh, Almost 20 years ago, I found out that we had lots of people who were incarcerated, and violence was the primary reason why many of them were behind bars. And I started to think, what could change this? And so I decided that I would start training with a group that sought alternatives to violence. And in the process of going through alternatives to violence, I found phenomenal ways to improve how I felt about others, how I feel about myself, how to be able to communicate better, how to establish cooperation, how to create community in places where there's brokenness among the people. And then when conflict arises, how to be able to prevent it. If I couldn't prevent it, how to resolve it.
I see. And I also know that you've been so successful helping postgraduate students, right, to
Yes.
finish their dissertations, and they come to you because I've heard so many stories, and I think our previous interview was around that too. Because Dr. Rubye Braye is not the first, it's not the first time we're interviewing her, because there's so much. She's like a walking encyclopedia of wisdom. So let's get into the conflict resolution, Rubye, since this is the topic for today. What are the steps? Can you share them, or the little shifts?
Well, the shifts are these. Nothing can be fixed outside until you've done the inner work. And I believe the inner work starts with seeing yourself as a human being, not somebody who's perfect, but a person who's able to listen and care about other people. Once you have this sense of self-respect, then it's possible to be able to embrace the humanity of other people, to see them as people and not objects that we simply put names on and then treat badly. Once you can begin to see people as people, other human beings, it's possible to care enough to be able to provide support and assistance and encouragement and to nurture their vision, to see them, to hear them, to acknowledge them and appreciate them. Once that's done, when people have needs, it's possible to be willing to support the accomplishment of their needs, the achievement, it's like supporting somebody else's dream, as opposed to simply looking out for number one. In order to do that, it often requires cooperation and sometimes even collaboration, where they have a goal that you assist in helping them realize, especially when it's a fine and a noble goal. And anytime you're doing something, you won't always agree. And if you don't necessarily agree, what do you do to get to a place where you can come to the sense that this is something that we can agree on, even though there are other things that we may not agree on, and then at times to even step aside if you don't agree. And the last is to always know that when conflict arises, that it's possible to go inside and pull forth a solution that is a non-violent solution. It may not always be the best solution for you or the best solution for the other person, but one that's workable for all parties involved.
Yeah.
Those are the shifts that I see, the parts of being able to create a way forward when conflict arises that could result in violence.
You've been doing it for so long, and thank you for sharing it in a nutshell. Are
Yes.
there any stories? Are there any like real life stories without naming, no names necessary, but how you helped to resolve a conflict that you were witnessing? in an organization or between the individuals? Because this formula, Rubye, may I just clarify for people also, is this formula working for organizations and within the family unit, like mom and let's say mom has a conflict with a child, or right, or it could be the principal of the school, between the principal and the student, and the organization, like on a bigger scale? Is it the formula that you gave, those 5 steps, are they applicable for any situation in any, whenever conflict arises? And what about like political parties, like when it's on a completely different, in a completely different scenario? Is the solution and those steps are going to be the same?
I have seen this process work in a micro setting, with a couple, and in the family. I have seen these steps work in communities where there have been different groups that had differing agendas. But then when they brought their agendas together, were able to see that there were some commonalities and to embrace the commonalities and to move forward. A story that I heard many years ago, when I find myself working with people in conflict, I often use this metaphorically to help them. There were 2 people fighting over an orange, and it had almost come to fisticuffs. And when somebody who was not part of the conflict asked, well, what do you want? One person wanted juice. And then the other person was asked, what do you want? And that person wanted seeds to be able to grow trees. And so when the orange was taken apart, what do you think happened? One party got the juice and the other party
got the seeds. Yes. And everybody was happy.
Exactly. So when I interact with groups or individuals who are in conflict with others, it's important to really understand, what do the parties really want? Now, there are times, like with couples, where they won't see eye to eye, and you have to agree to disagree. But that does not mean that it cannot be done respectfully, where one person who's leaving may take away in the present a respect for the other's difference, and the other takes away a respect for the other's difference, as opposed to bitterness and hatred and baggage from the past that keeps them always filled with anger and at times a desire for violence.
Exactly. And I want to circle back to the step number 1, when you said go within. You have to start with yourself. So it's easy, it's easily said, but how do people do that? How do you recommend you start even moving toward that direction, to recognize who you are, to understand who you are, and how to, because it's a process. What's your take on that? Where do you start?
There are so many people who inflict violence on themselves, who constantly put themselves down. I always encourage people to start by asking, what is it I really like about myself? What have I done that I really can almost rave about? Who am I? What are my features? What are my qualities that I really like? I like my voice. I like my hair. I like the fact that I care about others. I like the fact that I'm always on time. I like the fact that I'm neat, I'm clean, that I've raised beautiful children. I like the fact that I've been faithful in my relationship. I like the fact that I show up for work. I like the fact that I am a really good neighbor. I think when we take the time to express all the things that we like about ourselves, it is possible to come up with a list that far outweighs the many negative things that we could say and the many things that we feel would leave us feeling badly about who we are. That, I believe, is the first step. Your own sense of self-esteem, self-appreciation, uh, just warmth towards oneself.
I can't agree with you more, because when we come to that place, it might be a journey. It usually is, right? It's a journey, but if you're doing it consistently and you're willing to discover
Mhm.
who you really are, then the amount of joy and respect for yourself outweigh it, just like exactly like you said. And then you have no desire, the desire to create violence or towards somebody else, your neighbor or anyone you don't know, a stranger on the street, disappears and dissolves. So happy people can only promote happiness, right? And
Yes, there's that saying, hurt people hurt people. That when you go around hurting and feeling badly about yourself, it is the next logical step to then hurt other people.
mm,
And so the first thing is to be able to clean up our own self view. It's like we wash our own inner windshield.
exactly. Yes, I love that metaphor with the windshields, spiritual windshields. I forgot who said that originally, but I really, really like that phrase. And the question is, when people come, when you work with your clients, this would be the first step that you do. Like, could you kind of unveil the process of you working with people and helping them out to resolve the conflict? What would be, are you meeting with both sides, or how do you do that so that people understand your work better?
I've learned to invite people to just tell me their story, and I listen actively and non judgmentally.
Mm,
And in hearing the story, I then ask, well, what did you see and hear specifically? Give me the details. Just lay it all out. And then I invite them to tell me, how do you feel about this? What you've seen, what you heard. And then once they can tell me their feelings, not their thoughts, the feelings are of the heart, I invite them to tell me, what is it that you really need?
mm,
And once I have a sense of what's needed, I invite them to craft a message. If I could fix this between us today, this is what I would ask for. This is what I would request of myself, what I would request of others, and to make the request. It's hard for people to give you what you want if you never ask.
exactly.
Most of us are not mind readers.
You're
It's like
right.
your children. If your child is upset, what do you do as a parent? You're not a mind reader.
No, you talk to them or you give them space. Yes. In fact, in my house, we established the rules. We know what to say, what not to say when somebody is upset. Yeah, and
Mhm.
for I have two children, as and both have different needs in those moments. So you have to
Mhm.
recognize both. What works with my daughter is not exactly what works with my son, and it's
Mhm.
not exactly what works with me. And we
Yes.
all know it and listen, and it starts with listening. So I love it. I love the whole process that you've described. And you are a great listener, Ruby. And has it
Thank
always been
you.
a gift of yours, or have you developed it over the years? And can a person develop a skill of active listening? Because I think a lot of us are lacking that.
I am certain that listening is a skill that you learn, that you don't just show up listening. You don't show up being quiet, and quiet where the mind is quiet, quiet where you're not simply sitting, waiting and formulating an answer to what you're hearing, but actively listening. It's as though you kind of shut down what's happening inside so that you can take in. And then once you've taken in, to have space to be able to process. And to know that sometimes people don't need you to say a word, they just need you to listen.
Mm, that's so true.
And there are other times they need us to respond where we are asked for information or a response.
Yeah. Yes.
And then there are times when we're invited, but the response that's desired is really, tell me what you would do. What do you want to do about this? Where it's not our opinion that's being requested at all.
Mm. The tendency usually is to avoid conflict. What do you recommend? To avoid by no means, or to go within and try to find a solution? Because a lot of people, this is like they go into denial or violence or aggression, right? All those things that we've discussed. And this is usually a default state for a lot of people out there. Would you agree?
There are so few of us who've had good role models for how to prevent conflict and how to resolve conflict. Many of us grew up in homes where the parents either never had conflict or they never had arguments in front of the children. I've met people who said that they never saw their parents fight or disagree about anything, and I find that so hard to believe. In other cases, I've had people tell me that they saw their parents verbally go at each other, and others who saw their parents physically go at each other. And what they understood from watching and listening was that's how you resolved conflict. You were either quiet and you went off to a room by yourself, or you went for a walk, or you just kind of sat. Dads who would listen to mothers just go, 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 go. Or dads who would be violent and beat mothers, hopefully, or their desire was to beat the other person into submission. But there are so few of us who've seen healthy ways to resolve conflict. When I learned to do this, it felt like a gift that I gave myself. I also know, and it's worth mentioning, that there are times when you walk away. That feels like the appropriate thing to do. That when your vision is such that you can see that the conversation will never get to a place where the two of you can sort out what needs to be sorted out to resolve the conflict. There are times when it is necessary to be quiet, to breathe deeply, to ask questions, to analyze, to discuss, and where you can agree once you know what it is that will meet the need of the person that you're in conflict with. In fact, one of the beautiful things about conflict resolution is knowing that once you have agreement, that if it's somebody you will be with across time, like working in an office with a supervisor or living with a partner, that you will, in an ongoing way, gently support the other person. That you aren't in a position where you're playing gotcha should something happen again, where you kind of pull out from that old bag of resentment and anger and frustration, and you throw at them once again. Remember when you did this, or you're still doing this, but rather I remember in a generative way, this is what we agreed to and what you said you would do. I don't recall that we ever renegotiated or changed that. My understanding is that is what you will do. And it keeps us in the present as opposed to bringing forth old baggage from the past.
Exactly. And yeah, that's why I asked you, like, what do you recommend? And what I was also curious about is your take on the question of the conflict itself, is it a part, how do you look at the conflict? Is it a part of life, or is it something and it's like inevitable, and conflict sometimes arise and you just learn to understand that this is a natural part of life, instead of avoiding and trying to go? Usually it's either avoid or flee. What's the expression, like fight, flight,
fight or
fight or
flight.
flight response, or it could be you just go immediately into fear, right? Or the opposite. So what would you recommend, just to understand it and accept it as a part of life, and just learn those techniques, how to deal with that when it arises?
One of the things that I have learned is that I am sufficiently skilled, resourceful, and whole, and I am prepared and able to address any situation in the present, that I don't have to carry lots of fears from the past, that if I will take time to calm myself and breathe, I will be given what I need in the moment to understand what I should say and what I should do. And when I work with clients, I invite clients to stand for themselves in that place, to know that whatever life brings, that there is the inner resource to be able to address the situation in the moment, to take a moment to breathe, to be calm, and to invite your inner wisdom to inform what you say and what you do. I've also learned that it's important to take a moment in crises. It's like being a seamstress. Think twice and speak once. Let me say it again. When things are really horrible, think twice and speak once. To simply shout obscenities, to shout criticisms, to shout put downs, it's like once the milk is spilled, you cannot get it back into the bucket. Once the cow is out of the barn, remember, think twice, speak once.
Yeah.
And to slow down. I have a friend who, in anger, her husband, she was in a kitchen with her little children near, and her husband came home and he had been drinking and started to beat her. And she picked up a knife and went after him and caught herself.
Oh.
Again, to stop, to breathe, to think twice, to speak and act once with that power.
What would you say about the forgiveness practice? Does it play any role in this, within this context of conflict resolution?
Absolutely. There are those of us, in fact, I believe all of us, who have something in our past that if we could go back and change, we would. But the past is the past, and that's why it's called the past, because you can't go back.
Right.
Once it's over, it's done. And because you can't go back, and many times people who did and said things that were hurtful and harmful, many of them are dead and gone. So it's not like they can ever apologize to you. I believe it's important to have self-forgiveness for the things that we've done that we cannot go back and fix. It is also important to forgive and release others, especially those who are dead and gone. I've done role plays with people to be able to clear that energy out of the spirit. out of their being, to release it,
Mm-hmm.
to have a good sense to just release,
Mm-hmm.
just release. And there are a number of ways to do that. There are images that we use with the old TV and the new TV and the new view that overlays or reframes so that what you see in the present is a redo.
Could you?
There's a scrambling of the old so that it doesn't continue to haunt you. There are many practices that
Exactly.
therapists and that we can learn in order to help ourselves.
This I love this image. Like this is probably the creative visualization, right? With the old
Mhm.
TV and the new TV and scramble of the images of the past so that you have the new perspective on what had happened. There's also Ho'oponopono, right?
Mhm.
Practice from
Mhm.
Hawaii, I think, right? That is also very strong. And for some people, you could have lots of different practices under your belt, so to speak, or in your treasure chest, as I like to think about it, of your, instead of calling them the tools, right? Yeah, just beautiful,
Yes.
beautiful jewelry pieces that you're pulling out at certain times. This didn't work. Okay, well, let me try this. And maybe, so depending on the situation and the heaviness of that, and your state of mind and state of being, at any given moment. Dr. Ruby, I also want people to know, I want to switch gears a little bit, and I really want you to talk about you and your story, because you have a vast biography. You've done so much. Could you please share what you have been doing prior to becoming such an expert at what you're doing currently? With the education that you had, you are you are a walking encyclopedia. So I really want people to understand how many practices you had and how much you know and why you're so wise, because it didn't happen overnight.
Well, I've had 4 major career shifts. I spent 21 years in the military and served in Asia, in Europe, in the Caribbean, and all over the country. I've moved 21 times. So I've worked with lots of people. And there have been lots of conflicts along the way. And the beautiful thing is, along the way, I had opportunities to practice many of the things that I now share in my practice. The second work was as a Department of Defense civilian. And as a civilian, as a social scientist, I went to Iraq twice. And there I was submerged in war up close and personal, where I saw violence every day. And it was important for me to get a sense of what it was like to be traumatized and know that you just would not live your life hating people,
Mm-hmm.
and how to be able to process the experience of being bombed and having everything taken away and still feel whole, or to be able to go inside and find a place of wholeness that allowed one to still love oneself, see other people as people and not objects to simply hate them. From there, I worked as a counselor. Actually, that was before the military,
Mm-hmm.
in 2 city jails and a state penitentiary, where there were primarily men who had been involved with addictions of all sorts and distribution of drugs and just all kinds of behavior. But it was important to help them have a sense of wholeness so that once they got out, they would not return as recidivists, that they would go into their families or return to their communities and be agents for wholeness, for change and wholeness. And then I worked as a university professor. And there I worked with lots of people who were in all kinds of institutions, often challenged to be able to manage time in such a way that they could complete their studies and alter the course of their lives. And now I work as a coach. I'm a professional certified coach. And I work with individuals, I work with teams, I work in for-profits and nonprofits. And the work always centers around relationships. And where you have people interacting, there will always be conflict. And from a leader's perspective, it's helping to equip the leaders with the skills to be present themselves and then to interact with others as human beings so that we can work on issues rather than simply categorizing people and hating and being afraid of conflict and having harsh feelings towards the people.
Exactly. I have to apologize, but I need to open the door just for 1 second. And
Certainly.
just 1 second.
That's part of being human. And then having little animals that require our loving attention. Those are such beautiful butterflies. In Korean,
Part of being humans and doing working from home offices and well, this is just part of life, I guess.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Rubye, in light of everything that you said, can we, with your permission, I would love to have maybe just less than 1 minute of silence, for meaningful silence, just to go within for world peace. It's exactly what we've been talking about. And if you're okay with that, we'll just do this.
Absolutely.
Okay, and you guys can join us for this 30 seconds of silence. Thank you, Rubye. Thank you so much for joining me with that. And before we end this particular segment today, because I know there's going to be a round 2 and round 3 with Dr. Rubye Braye, it's impossible to end somewhere because there's so much to discuss with you, and it always brings joy to me personally, and I know there's a lot of value for everybody who is listening. So, Rubye, at the end, what I would love to do, if you're okay with that, it's a rapid fire kind of blitz sort of 7 questions that it's not really the questions. I start the sentence and then you finish it. It's basically you giving your definitions without overthinking. Are you ready for it?
All set. I'm excited to do it.
Okay. All right. Love is
the most important thing in the world.
Friendship is
a way to be able to treasure people in the world.
Conflict is
always.
Success is
to find a way to be happy in each moment of one's life.
Happiness is
a gift that we give ourselves by being who we are as our best self.
Amazing. Money is
a resource to be put to use to bless us and to bless others.
Museum.
Never to be hoarded.
Mhm. Museums are.
Wonderful places where we get to see art that represents the spirit speaking through us, both at
Beautiful.
our best and our worst. I've been to the Holocaust Museum, and I was devastated to think of the things that humans did to humans.
Yeah.
I've been to the Whitney. I've been to the African American Museum, and many of our national treasures along the mall in Washington,
Mhm.
where it is fabulous to see the creativity that flowed through the souls of artists in ways that are just
Unimaginable.
imaginable. They are imaginable because we were able to manifest, to transform what was given to us as a gift and to create the reality, the tangible.
That's that's beautiful. Beautiful. One more question. If you had to gift a book to someone, what would that be? Something that would make a huge difference in their lives. Any recommendations?
There is a lovely little book that I gave away recently. It was a Thich Nhat Hanh book titled Love.
Oh, I love her. That's one of the nuns, I think. Is she the nun or
No. He's the Buddhist
oh,
monk who died recently.
he
Yes,
he
there is, what is her name? Pema Chodron, who's the Buddhist female monk. I think that's the one that you may be.
yeah, that I was thinking of. Yes.
Yes.
You also it is a contributor to at least two books, right? That you
Yes.
participated in. Could you please share that information with us too?
Well, one of the books is this one, Discover Your Inner Strength. And this was co-authored with Stephen Covey and Ken Blanchard and Brian Tracy. And you can get it on Amazon, or you can get in touch with me or go to my website at wuliturtle.com, wuliturtle.com.
Yes.
And then there's another, Success Strategies. And again, this was co-authored, and it features Marjorie Blanchard and a dear friend of mine, Eric Evans, and again, Brian Tracy and Dr. Warren Bennis, who's like one of the preeminent leadership scholars in the nation.
That's right. Yes. Who are these books for? Are they for business owners or not necessarily? More for general public? What would you say?
They're for people who have decided that they could use strategies from some of the best thinkers regarding success. And this one, the one, Discovering Your Inner Strength, I have been concerned that there are so many people in such great pain in the workplace. And we've recently had increasing numbers of people committing suicide.
Yeah.
And my sense is when we're able to go inside and continue to remind ourselves of all of the wonderful things about ourselves, and we're not waiting for somebody else to do it. It's remarkable how it is possible to transform our thinking, our speech, and our actions associated with our being.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Thank you so, so much for today. Before we officially end the show today, I want to repeat myself today because I'm sure there's going to be more with Dr. Rubye Braye. Any last words of wisdom for right now, right here?
Thank you for that invitation to share. What comes to mind is that life is very short and time is really precious. And the only time that we ever have is right now, the present. Cannot go back and fix the past, cannot live in the future, can only prepare for it. Take each moment like the gift that it is. Breathe your way forward with openness to new ideas, being flexible so that you can hear truth and change. And then to be kind, loving and kind towards yourself and other people.
And other people.
If there's anything that I try to remember every morning, it's to be open to a world that's full of amazing resources for everybody, to be flexible in my thinking and not locked in on the only way, and to be kind.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity to share. It's been
What a beautiful, Ruby, what a beautiful message. And I am totally 100, 200, 300% with you. So you guys have been watching and listening to Dream Big with Zhanna, inspiring you to reignite, refire, and refuel your life. And with us today was the incredible, really wise, amazing, beautiful Dr. Rubye Braye. Thank you so much, and stay inspired with love and kindness, just like Ruby was suggesting. Thank you,
Thank
Ruby.
you, Zhanna. I am grateful for this time.
Thank you.
And to you for making it possible.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye. Until next time, guys.